Hello again to all subscribers and listeners of this channel. Today I want to talk about how I believe historical research should be conducted. In this video I will break down what appears to be the incredibly lazy, absurd, emotionally invested, and educationally detrimental ways in which people conduct research and disseminate historical information. And I will break down how historical research and dissemination of information should be conducted properly from my layman's point of view, and why proper historical research is important. So without further ado, let us begin. One, in the modern age of the internet, how is historical research conducted today? Well, unfortunately, in the internet age, research is not being conducted, not really. Instead, what people call research is just mindless repeating of links, of statements, of buzzwords on social media websites, and an overall laziness when it comes to disseminating information. 1A. A lot of info online is blindly repeated statements by others. You ever notice how when people share info online, the statement or image is blatantly copied and pasted? The idiots reposting don't even try to hide the fact that they copied this post from someone else's profile without acknowledging them. 1B. Not enough fact checking, nowhere near enough fact checking. And I'm going to quote Denzel Washington. He said it best when he was being interviewed. I'm not sure how long ago this was, but it was a very wise thing that he said. And I quote, "We live in a society now where it's just first. Who cares? Get it out there. We don't care who it hurts. We don't care who we destroy. We don't care if it's true. Just say it. Just sell it." Unquote. And that's exactly what many mainstream media outlets, independent media, and people on social media do. They focus on being the one with the major story over being accurate about the story. So too many stories or facts within the story are not correct at all. And a lot of these people increasingly don't seem to care. 1C. Too much rewording of statements. People love paraphrasing what someone else said, either because they're too lazy and don't want to be precise, they're too emotional and misinterpret someone's words when trying to recite them, or they're not paying enough attention and they misword or reword a person's statement by mistake. All three of these are unacceptable when you're supposed to be telling people what's going on in a particular situation, especially if you're a mainstream news outlet. You should know better. Quote verbatim. 1D. Too much emotional investment in a particular mainstream or historical narrative. A good example of this would be the Afrocentrists and the white nationalist types. On both sides, they go out of their way to harmonize their ancestors in order to make themselves feel better, stronger, more accomplished by virtue of being descended from them, and also demonizing the people that are not their ancestors when it comes to this historical information. These folks focus more on the narrative than reciting actual factual information. Very damaging overall. 1E. Too much demonizing / harmonizing of people and facts to fit the narrative. The news stories about rape culture are an example of this. Too many times when we hear about a rape culture, we hear about the Catholic priests or something similar to Catch a Predator. But we don't hear from most news sources about the rape gangs and immigrant populations throughout Europe, nor do we hear about the prison rape or the statutory rape of male students by female teachers or the rape crisis in places like South Africa. We don't hear about those stories because they don't fit the type of narrative that's being pushed by the mostly feminist, progressive side of the mainstream media. Very, very insulting, very dangerous, and very damaging. Not acceptable at all. You want to push a narrative, you don't deserve to work in media. You want to work in media? Point out what's actually there in reality, not a particular narrative where people fit into particular boxes. Again, 100% unacceptable. 1F. Too many people want to be the first to report something. I stated this before and I'm going to say it again. Instead of being the one to report it accurately, they want to be the first one to report it at all. They want to be the one that breaks the story, not get the story correct. I'm going to quote Denzel Washington again in that same interview. And I'm going to link that video in the description so you can see exactly what he said, how he said it. But I quote, "What's the long-term effect of too much information? Well, one of the effects is the need to be first, not even to be true anymore. So what's the responsibility that you all have? To tell the truth, not just to be first, but to tell the truth." Unquote. People who put information, news stories out there need to refocus their efforts on fact-checking and fact-spreading and truth-telling, not just be the one to break a story. Number 2, why this form of research is not acceptable. This modern day quote-unquote research. It only makes it harder for people to gain real knowledge of the past. 2A. Very obviously, people are going to be misled. And people will be misled over and over again. So someone please explain how we're supposed to make informed decisions in our lives if we're never told the truth or given the facts. Can't make major decisions for the betterment of civilization if we're being told things that aren't correct on a mass scale. 2B. A lot of ideologies will be created based off of this incorrect history. Whether it's feminists who distort history claiming how badly women were oppressed, the Afrocentrists who proclaim that the black woman is God and we was kangs and shit, or the Eurocentrists who claim that Nordics were sent by manifest destiny to rule over the earth. Doesn't matter what the ideology is. It's all nonsense, it's all BS, it's all stupid. These are all blind, ignorant ideologies that come from equally blind people who consume information based off of narratives over facts. Again, unacceptable behavior. Very childish. And very dangerous overall also. 2C. A lot of egos will be inflated. Too many people are blindly using this information not to learn and make better decisions, but only to make themselves feel good. Accuracy be damned. 2D. And finally, a lot of bad decisions will be made based off of this distorted history, which will further distort the present and the future. A lot of adult people who have a more childlike mentality, they will ignore major problems in their life, treat others in a condescending way, they'll waste resources performing silly rituals, they'll vote for public policy, demand from others, and or I would say waste their money in unwise ways based off of the narrative that they've developed. A narrative they've ultimately spawned from misinformation within badly conducted historical research and or bad dissemination of information, bad reporting, etc. Number 3. Historical research and how historical research should be conducted. So let's go back and look at the things that should be done from a layman's point of view. What should be done when it comes to conducting any type of research, especially historical research, correctly. Let's break it down. 3A. The 5 W's and the how. A lot of people use this in journalism. I think this should be used a lot more broadly throughout any type of education, following the use of the 5 W's and the how. People need to use these 6 basic questions when learning about something new and trying to educate others. The first W, who. Make sure you and your audience understands exactly who it is you're referring to in the story. Whether it's something historical, whether it's something going on in the current age, whatever. Break down that person's name, their gender, even their age and their occupation, what they're doing. All of this is helpful information when it comes to bringing up in a report or an article that you're trying to get out to the people, something you may be writing or reporting on. The what. Break down in as much detail as possible what actually happened. One of the best ways to do this, to break this down, is to break the event down or the happening into a sequence. A sequence that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The next W, where. Be as specific as possible about the location. Use names of places, coordinates, landmarks, directions, etc. to break down where something may have happened. The when. Next W. Break down the minute, the hour, the day, the month, the year of when whatever happened. If you can't be that precise, be as precise as possible when it comes to breaking down when something happened. The why. Last W. Definitely do some critical thinking. Use your imagination, use some abstract thinking, and try to piece together as best as possible why an event occurred. If you don't have enough evidence linking back to why it occurred, piece together ideas of why it may have happened that way, but make sure to put together multiple possible scenarios, while leaving enough room in the material for the reader to figure out more things out for themselves. Speculation is totally okay as long as you put in enough information based off of what you know so far. Again, the how. Now, as far as I can see, when it comes to the how, definitely do the same thing here as you would for the why. So find as much evidence as you can, find as many different details as you can, find as many different perspectives as you can, witnesses, etc., to break down the why and the how something happened. 3B. Quote statements, articles, books, and files verbatim. Try your best to not paraphrase what a source says. Please don't do that. Too many people, even so-called intellectual experts, they seem to not do a very good job at quoting people verbatim. Copy and paste actual statements word for word, and then give credit to whoever made that statement and link back to the original source of the statement. I don't know why more people don't do this. It's surprising how many people do not do this, but this should be ubiquitous on all research / journalistic projects, historical and otherwise. Again, I can't state this enough. It's really, really helpful if you can try as best as you can to always quote people verbatim. Quote them exactly what they said, word for word, within context, regardless of how you feel about it. And again, when you look at the news, it's surprising how many people don't do this, but this needs to be done on a regular basis. Quote people verbatim, and again, quote people verbatim. No excuses, especially in the digital age where things can be recorded as they were. 3C, cite your sources. Always link back to where you found the info that you needed in order to present the story and put the information out there. Name the person, what they said, exactly where they said it, how they said it, and the context in which the statement was made. 3D, do your absolute best to find the earliest source of information. And this is a big one. When it comes to finding a historical thing, a journalistic thing, a scientific thing, there may be up to 20 different chains in the link between the original information and how it got to you. Ultimately, if you're really meticulous about it, you should be able to find all 20 links to that original source. A lot of people are not willing to do that, but if you want to do really accurate reporting on anything that's going on, whether it's historical, whether it's going on now, whether it's scientific, whatever, if you really are serious about it and respectful about it, you will go back to each one of those and link them back as far as possible to the original source, or as far back as possible, as close to the original source as you can possibly get. A lot of the times, the info goes back directly to an anthropologist, an archaeologist, a historian, a scientist, etc., who went out and did direct field work or conducted an experiment and did actual immediate in the environment evidence gathering, etc., in that particular phenomenon. And going back to, or as close to that original work as possible, is the best thing you can do. Try your best to find the originator of a statement, of a phenomenon, of a finding, whatever it is that they made. Try to go back to that original source as much as possible. Even if you got to go back through dozens and dozens of different sources that come from that. Go as far back in that chain as you possibly can. The further back you go, the better. Number 4, why this form of research is the most beneficial. There are a few but very important reasons why conducting research in this way, this more meticulous, more mature way, is very beneficial. 4A, people get a more accurate understanding of history and the reality around them. Not only that, but many more people are not going to be accurate about what they find when they do second and third hand research. If the original research is done wrong, everybody that comes after that is going to be wrong. It's as simple as that. If you're wrong about what you're stating, everybody's going to be wrong after you if they use you as a source. So you have to be very careful about what it is you're putting together. Again, no excuses, especially today where things can be recorded in real time much more easily than ever before. 4B, if the research is done correctly, people can make more accurate decisions about today based off of the decisions of the past. We can only make good decisions for our future once we understand the past. For that to happen, we have to understand the past as accurately and as unbiasedly as possible, as well as what's happening in the present. 4C, people tend to humble themselves once they get the real raw facts about what human ancestors did all over the planet. When people see what past humans both failed and succeeded at, when people are able to see other human beings' triumphs and atrocities that they committed, when people can go through history and go through reality and see the good and the bad of human choices throughout antiquity, these people tend to humble themselves about who they are as well as who their ancestors were, at least from my observation. 4D. We could create a better future by getting an honest view of what was done in the past. Only through clear and honest lenses can we see what both is behind us and what is in front of us. Only through proper research do we keep those lenses through which we see ourselves clear of debris. Debris that is formed by the ego. In conclusion, the research of history, not just history, but the research of anything, unfortunately has become a joke. And if this continues, it will only make it harder for people to actually gain knowledge of humanity's past, present, and future. Here are the problems and their consequences, to reiterate. Too much information is blindly repeated, stupidly repeated. Not enough fact-checking goes on. Too many phrases or statements are reworded, therefore easily taken out of context. Too much emotional investment in certain narratives. Far too much Disneyfying of history. And when I say Disneyfying of history, as in there's too much emphasis on this black and white view of history, this harmonizing and or demonizing of people of the past, rather than looking at things in a more nuanced and objective way. Too many of us want to be the first to break a story versus getting the story correct and being as accurate as possible. All these things lead up to us putting debris, psychological, emotional, ego-driven debris, on the lenses through which we look at our species, the Homo sapiens sapien. Here is the solution and its benefits. Use the 5 W's as well as the how. Quote people verbatim. Quote people verbatim. Quote people verbatim. Really am a stickler about that. Cite your sources. No matter if it's a book, website, an animation, a journal, etc. Always cite your sources. Do your best to find the original source of any information and or statement that someone made. No matter how long it takes, try to get back to that original source as best as you possibly can. As close as you can possibly get. And also, do your own fact checking in spite of what others do. Just because so many people are weak, lazy, insecure, arrogant, and dishonest with how they look at humanity doesn't mean that you have to be. Do your due diligence. Following all these steps of proper research means that this process, as far as I can see, clears the ego-driven, psychological, and emotional debris from your lens through which you see your own species, the Homo sapiens sapien. If either a white dude or a black dude decides to research the history of the African continent and they research it based off of their emotions / preconceived ideas, and when they research it, they don't research it based off of an unbiased, objective research standards, they will both end up misleading each other as well as themselves. You want to see and learn more about the Homo sapiens sapiens species. Leave the ego behind and learn. That is all for now. Please like, subscribe, share, and donate to support this channel's content. Coming out with more videos as time goes on. You all have a nice day. I'm out. Peace.